What is up, guys? It is the OTO podcast. You are seeing us again. It feels like we were just back with 324, but we had back-to-back pay-per-views. Most recently, UFC 325. Amazing card. We had Volk defending his belt. We had Tai Tuivasa making his return to the main card. But first off, we will get started with my co-host, Banning Crowley. Banning, how did you feel about the card itself?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good overall. I just want to make sure, that you have to clarify back-to-back numbered events.
Oh,
So
that's fine.
yeah, no, it's okay. We've all
It
been there
happens.
before, but
Yep.
it's a new era. We are in a new era, so have to respect that. But this card, I think I built it up more in my head than I thought it was going to be. I don't think it was bad, but I feel like a pretty good consensus I've been seeing is that, it was good, but I don't think it was great. I think it could have been great. Not that any of the fights were bad. Um, well, no, most of them on the
Some of
most
them were bad.
most of them on the main card were not bad. 4 out of 5 were pretty good.
Yeah, there's
Um,
one in my mind, but
the prelims going into that, I was looking at both of our predictions. I think I was 7 of 13. You were 6 of 13. Collectively, those first
okay.
5 fights, could not tell you who was going to win those fights. Um, but I thought overall, pretty solid. Obviously, we can start at the top with Alexander Volkanovski beating Diego Lopez. I think with my prediction, I had Volk by decision. I know that you had Diego Lopez. I think we both wanted Lopez to win. At the end of the day, I just didn't think Lopez was going to be good enough to beat Volk. And I mean, obviously, hindsight is 2020, but yeah, he didn't have it. He's not a bad fighter by any means, right? Alexander Volkanovski, one of the greatest fighters of all time. Even Max Holloway fought him 3 times and still didn't get past him. So, not something to be ashamed about. But Lopez showed that he's still one of the best fighters in this division. 50-45 is crazy. That's about all I have on that aspect, though. That I don't agree with the 50-45.
Yeah, it was eerily reminiscent of the first fight, a little less action. The card as a whole, as you were mentioning, I was slightly underwhelmed. Obviously, on paper, we had the co-main of Kayla Harrison uh, fighting for the belt, which obviously, or that was yeah, that was actually last week, but
Uh,
anyway, running through that, but yeah, the card was slightly underwhelming. What I was trying to get at before I had a stroke was the Paramount era cards, where you had the Kayla Harrison co-main canceled, and at 326 you have the Moicano Ortega co-main was also canceled. So the Paramount era is my point I was trying to make was that Hooker versus BSD is like it seems like that's the new co-main for the Paramount era in 2026. So after the Harrison got canceled, you had Suga, and so these are the standard of the cards in 26. And I'm just not sure. Uh, I personally like. I know the White House is coming up, but I think the co-mains are a big part of the card. We used to be seeing two title fights on some of these cards. I was looking back at Volk's career, and he would be fighting with other champs on the same card. So we'll get into Hooker and BSC in a bit, but before we get into the card itself, I would just like to say that with the road to the UFC fights, I was not very impressed with the overall card, let alone the performances. But on the first fight, Volk is just so good. He's so skilled, and he's clearly a level above Lopez when it comes to fight IQ and his skill set. And Volk, it was obviously similar to the first time around where he got the win again. I took Volk by decision the first time. This time around, I had Lopez winning by TKO. Volk is definitely chinny. We've seen that. Lopez clipped him one time. I thought it was a slip in the moment, but it definitely was a knockdown. Volk got right back up, and it does show like you really don't need to put much into it. If you can just catch Volk with a hook, you can drop him. But Volk is just so good at keeping his range. I know Lopez broke both of his feet. I'm not sure when that happened. Maybe it was kicks that were checked, but Lopez definitely he looked
there
like
was no check.
there was no
There
check,
was no
but
check.
there could have been a check though. But Lopez definitely struggled to break into the distance, and Volk is just such a smart, intelligent striker. He throws 8 or 9 feints. for every strike that he does throw. And the only weakness with Volk, the only way to catch him is what Ilya did, is you have to back him up and you have to catch him when he doesn't move. He doesn't have great head movement, but if you can catch Volk not moving his head and not moving his feet, you can catch him right on the chin. But against Lopez, he was circling him so well. He just dominated that fight. I don't know if it was 5-0, maybe 4-1, but I saw some credible journalists like MMA Guru thought it was 3-2, possibly 3-2 to Lopez, which I completely disagree with. I think Volk just dominated, even if you want to call it 4-1, but I just think Volk is a level above Lopez, and Lopez didn't make any adjustments to overcome that skill gap.
Yeah, I had it 3-2 at the time. I'll have to rewatch it, maybe 4-1, but I think it was closer than the judges initially gave it. The one thing that I did want to point out, though, is um, you had Alexander Volkanovski at 9 for the pound for pound rankings. That
I
is one
do.
thing that I wanted to talk about because personally, I have him at 5. The UFC has him at 5 right now. I don't know if they're going to move him above Pereira to 4. We'll have to see. But I'm just wondering. I want to know why do you have him at 9 after back-to-back title defenses with his only. I know the knockout is what you're going to say, but to be fair, it is the two best guys in the UFC right now.
Yeah, Volk only lost to the best of the best, but
And he moved up in one of those fights.
yeah, that is very true. And I personally, I value my pound for pound ranking is a different, I guess, algorithm than the UFC ones. I really value activity, and I do value that who you fight matters, when you fight them matters, and how that results goes. So when you look at Volk's resume, he was always a beast. I mean, beating Holloway 3 times. But when you look at the recent era where I had Volk. My list is more of a fluid ranking. It's not out of the blue. Volk is one of the best, most skilled fighters. He's one of the best 145ers of all time, if not the best. I would say he is the best, but I had him at like number 1 or 2, and then he loses to Islam close fight. He beats Yair. That doesn't do anything. Yair's like nothing to me. He gets brutally KO'd by Islam, which hurt his stock a lot. And then he gets brutally KO'd by Ilya right after, which hurts his stock even more. And then Diego Lopez is okay. He's no world beater, but this fight, I would have much rather seen Volk fight Evlaev or Lerone Murphy than fighting Lopez again. Lopez clearly didn't make any adjustments or grow as a fighter between the last 2 fights. So Volk's up there. He is 37. I do have him at 9 because some other guys, I think Pantoja has a much better resume right now in terms of defending his belt. The people he fights at flyweight, maybe you can say aren't as good, but I just
But he
think
doesn't have the belt.
not at the current moment he doesn't. That's why Joshua Van's also on there. But yeah, no, I'm defending my choices here. Aspinall,
Okay.
I know you hate that he's at 5 for me, but I
I'm
value
just
like
well, I
dominant.
think based on what you just said with the
Yeah,
activity and who he fights, he doesn't have the activity or he doesn't have the people that he
who
fought either.
Aspinall?
Yeah.
He doesn't at the current moment. He doesn't, but he did. I ranked him based off his activity, and then John Jones and Cyril Gahn had something to say about that. But I'm not gonna drop
Okay.
Aspinall if he hasn't really lost anybody. He dominates everybody. Sure, it's a weaker
Well,
division.
then we should have John Jones in the top 5 because he hasn't lost
John Jones
anyone.
is retired though. He was in the top 5,
But he did,
and then
he
he
came out of
retired.
retirement.
Not officially. I believe he's
Okay.
retired,
Well,
but
I'm just wondering. I'm just trying to get
yeah, no, that's fair.
a healthy debate here. But then the other one
Yeah.
too that I would
Uh,
say is I think that I would still have I would have him over Jan because if we look at I know Jan just had a great performance against Marab, but if you look at the past few fights before that, Marcus McGee, Figueiredo, Song Yadong a good win, but before that 3 losses as well. So his stock very very low, and then comes back, beats Yadong, which was a good win, but then Figueiredo and a 15-minute fight against Marcus McGee and current day Figueiredo. I don't know. But he did
yeah,
have a fantastic performance against Marab.
I
So,
was gonna say the one guy that was above all those names in the pound for pound was Marab for me, and Jan went out there and just smoked Marab. He showed he's the better fighter, so I think Jan deserves that. If you can beat someone, if Volk beat Islam, if Volk beat Ilya, I'd have him very highly ranked. But my list is very fluid. It's not based off their last fight or the last year. So it's based off what they've done over their whole career. So Jan beating Merab, I mean, Merab was, I mean, we gave him Fighter of the Year. Merab was dominating everyone. We thought no one was ever going to beat him. And then Jan goes out there and just dominated. So I think Jan deserves his ranking. But if Volk beats someone not named Diego, like, I just don't value. Volk's last three wins are Lopez, Lopez, Yair. And that's over the last 3 years now. That's not, that's just not an amazing resume to me. I think Volk's amazing, but I would like to see some better names in there.
That is fair, but also to his credit, not his fault.
Not at all.
Definitely, I don't think that he wanted the Lopez fight, but either way, I mean, I think the obvious matchup next is Volk versus Lopez trilogy.
Again, the trilogy, yes.
It was just, I think it was too close to call.
Yeah, based off what MMA Guru said, which is how I form all of my opinions, it was too close to call. So I think an immediate rematch is only fair. But realistically, Evlive and Lerone Murphy seem primed to go at UFC London in March. So I think that's got to be next fight for Volk. I don't know, however, what is really in the future for Volk. I would
I
have.
think,
Mhm.
I think realistically, if that happens in March, I think Volk's ready to go June or July. Not June, I guess. I don't think he'll be on the White House card,
I
but I
think
would say July.
July. I think it could be a summer fight, but I mean, I would have not hated to see Volk retire. I can't lie. Maybe not after this fight. He took like basically zero damage, but I think Evlive is a very friendly style for Volk. That like Volk is very good wrestling. Islam is so much bigger than him, and Volk looked incredible wrestling against Islam. So Evlive's not going to go out there and clip Volk's shin. So I would love to see that fight in the summer if he does get the win. Murphy, on the other hand. He is more of a point fighter, but he's such a lengthy featherweight. If he goes out there with Volk, I don't know. I think he's gonna catch that chin.
I'll say it right now.
Yeah.
I'm putting my stock in. I think Lerone Murphy is the featherweight champion at the end of the year.
Yeah. I
I'll say
think
that right now. I think he's going to beat Evlaev, um, and then I think he has the power to knock out Volk. On the opposite end, he could just get sat on for 5 rounds and just not get a
yeah, that is
championship
very
fight.
true.
But
I think if live is just a hard fight, as hard fight as Volk will be for Murphy. Not I think Volk is obviously better, but I'm saying stylistically, of live is just so tough to I mean,
uh,
who's to say he doesn't just hug his back that entire fight?
I mean, I'm honestly, I think Evlaev is a harder fight than Volk for Lerone Murphy right now.
Damn.
That might be
That's
crazy to
not what I thought
say,
you were going to say, but I mean,
but
I'm pretty
I
close
think
to saying that myself.
stylistically, Evlaev is a harder fight for him just because of the grappling threat. If he goes in there with Volk, I mean, Volk is definitely better, I would say, but Volk's gonna want to stand and bang with him, and it's gonna be like the Lopez fight. So I think he's more inclined to that. And then compared to an Evlaev fight where, you have that grappling threat, he's gonna go for the takedowns, especially across 5 rounds. So that should be interesting. I think on the opposite end, though, Diego Lopez, I think easy fight. I think
It's
Yair Rodriguez, it has to be at this point. But I think the featherweight division in a pretty good spot right now, across the board. And
one last thing on that though, before we move on, but I think something we've been harping on, but Lopez, Yair definitely has to happen. Yair's been sitting at the top three of the rankings for a while. They have so much bad blood there. That's a great fight to make. But when you look at the division, Evlaev did beat Lopez 2 or 3 years ago now. That's something people don't really mention when you bring up Lopez getting back-to-back title shots where Evlaev literally beat him. So I'm not sure how Evlaev doesn't get that title shot. He's undefeated. But I think at that top of the division, the only other name that's on an upward trajectory instead of down is Gene Silva, which is obviously someone that Lopez just beat. So I think in the future outlook, my one last point before I ask you is when you look at Volk's retirement, putting it that way, you have Lopez fights Yair in a great fight. You have Murphy versus Vlaev. And then if you're gonna do Yair versus Lopez, I think Murphy versus Gene Silva could be an amazing fight. Who knows if he wins against Vlaev, but my one last point is Volk, I think he's got to retire before it's too late. I would like to see him fight Evlive or Murphy. And then honestly, I think he should retire after that if he fights in the summer because I know he says he wants to go longer, but if he's fighting Gene Silva or even Murphy at that point, I think his chin is going to get cracked and it's not going to end well. So my point to you is, where should he retire? Should he keep on going? Should he move up? Should he take on Jan? What's next for Volk? When should he give it up?
I mean, I don't think it's crazy for him to take two or three more fights. I think he fights the winner of Murphy and Evlaev. And then when I look at the rest of these guys, I don't think it's crazy that the UFC gives him a like favorable matchup after that. Like, what's there to say? Diego Lopez versus Yair. If Diego Lopez wins, he's not fighting Volk. Like that 100%. Even if Yair wins, are you giving him another title fight against Volk right away? Like,
I
I know it'll
wouldn't.
be a decent amount of time in between, but I don't know if what is that good enough to get you another title fight? Is you went out and beat Ortega, and then I don't what oh Pitbull was his last win. So three
Yeah.
rounds also, by the way. Like I'm not that moved by that. And then at that point, I mean he fights Mavzar or Lerone Murphy, and then who says that he doesn't fight Aljo at the end of the year? Who's at 5 right now? Who says the UFC doesn't just give him Aljo? Like I mean, there's no
Yeah.
reason why Aljo couldn't get another win before the end of the year and get a title fight. Would he deserve it? Maybe not 100%, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the path that we're going down.
Yeah, I like that thinking. I mean, Volk showed that he really is such a skilled fighter. He is so good. And it's just a shame at 37. He showed against Ilya like he can't take on those like top dogs and have a fire fight with them, but he is smart enough to take on guys like Evlaev. So I think there's one or two more fights. I do agree. If it's not Silva, if it's not like if it's already Murphy or Vlaev, like yeah, maybe you give him like an Aljo or something in a legacy fight. Maybe he moves up to fight Ilya again at like 39 or something. Who knows? But I think Volk's pretty close to the end, and I hope he retires without taking too bad of a beating. But speaking of bad beatings, Benoit Saint-Denis absolutely mauled Dan Hooker the same way that Moicano mauled BSD. But I was I actually went out there and last second flipped to Dan Hooker. I don't know why. I like the underdog value there. I thought Hooker maybe would have learned from Armin, but wow, BSD has looked like a world beater in front of everybody except for Renato Moicano. Just some
How
questions.
good is Renato Moicano?
How good is he? Just a question.
Yeah, I mean, pretty good. Easy money, some would say. BSD is back 100%, 4 wins in a row now, against, pretty good competition. Roofy, good win. Beneil Dariush, what he knocked him out in the first round. That was pretty easy. And then this one, against, Dan Hooker. I mean, going into this fight, I thought BSD had it pretty easily. He was a pretty big favorite. I agreed with it. Dan Hooker can't grapple. As
Yeah.
someone as Patty Pimblett said about him, I forget the exact I forget the exact quote, but I'm sure someone can clip it right now. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, Dan Hooker can't grapple.
Can we
So
bring that up that Patty might have been right of what he said? Like factually speaking?
factually speaking, he was right.
Yeah.
But so on the opposite end, though, BSD going to continue to move up the rankings. Honestly, like at this point, I don't know who you can give him because Max and Charles are fighting. That's going to be in March. BSD can go not in March, but I would say April or May is not crazy. I don't think. And then, Ilya is going to fight at some point, right? He's going to fight Gaethje probably at the
At
White
some
House
point.
card. They're both locked into that. Is it crazy that you just BSD and Armin? Like, is BSD
I
the
mean,
best guy to fight Armin right now?
I have some
Besides,
names, but
okay. I mean, just looking at, kind of the rankings right now, I wouldn't be mad about that matchup the more that I think about it. Like, I think that could be a banger fight. I think Armin would beat him pretty easily, but I would be excited to see that fight. Um, but Hooker, I don't know, man. I don't know how far he falls after this, especially because Fiziev's at 9, BSD is at 8. I'm sure BSD will just go to 6. I'm sure Hooker will probably just go to 8. Patty didn't move. He's still at 5. I don't know. Like, do you make the Patty Hooker fight now?
So I do think that is the fight that should happen. Just like Lopez Yair. I mean, you got to book that fight. Patty versus Hooker is gonna be such a fun fight to watch. I don't know how that would go. I would definitely take Patty there, but I think Hooker is. I mean, it looked like he barely tried grappling versus BSD, but against Patty, I mean, he's gonna be thinking of a certain comment in his head, and that would be a very fun fight. But I do like that you brought up Armin. Going back to Benoit Saint-Denis, right now he's number 8. In 2 more days, when this is out, probably he's going to be up a little bit more. He could be up to 5. He could be above Patty. Who knows? But most likely,
No,
Sarah,
they're not. They're not putting him above Patty.
not
Let's
their
be
star.
honest.
But when you realistically, when you look at the rankings, let's say BSD is at 6, ahead of Dan Hooker. Patty just lost. You're gonna have one of Holloway and Oliveira will be losing next pay-per-view. One of them will win, one will lose. I'll put it out there.
If
So, yep.
if one of them, if the loser doesn't retire, the
That
loser,
yes,
the loser. I don't think
absolutely.
anyone's brought up the point that the loser of this fight might just be done, and that if
Might
Charles
be.
loses, I would not be shocked at all if he's
Yeah.
done.
It definitely depends how they would lose too, but that only further strengthens my point that BSD is like realistically like one spot away from Armin right now in terms of guys that need a fight. Armin has been sitting at 1. I know he's below the interim champ Gaethje, but I do like that you brought him up where he's been the number 1 ranked contender for so long now, and he's been taking RAF fights like he has literally nothing planned, and he's in purgatory right now. So why not take BSD, who looks incredible, and why not give him Armin Sarukin? BSD has great grappling, great striking. I think that's the only solution because Armin has nobody else to fight. And after that win, BSD realistically is not too far from Armin, but I think Patty Hooker has to happen after that fight. Both of them are coming off a loss. They both need a win. That would be huge. But in the fight itself, relating to Dan Hooker, obviously not impressed with his grappling at all. Clearly, those words did not get to him. But it was more so he just sat there and took a beating. And all week, I mean, I do think he has like CTE like very badly, and he has clear no regard for his own health, which you do need a level of that in the UFC. But I don't like Hooker's gimmick of I like Hooker as a fighter and I like his personality, but I don't like your gimmick being I love bloodshed, I love a brawl, I love going out there and just I don't care about my health or his. I spar without mouth guards and no gloves, but you do all that, and then you just get sat on and elbowed in the face like 50 times before Herb Dean stops it. I want to see more from Dan Hooker. I just think he might just be kind of a journeyman bottom of the rankings, not that guy that he thinks he is, which is tough to say for him. But either way, BSD came out looking amazing. I say it like every time, but he was piecing up Dustin Poirier before he got dropped pretty badly. But how good is Renato Moicano is going to be the question of the night because BSD dominated Rufi, who we'll get into. He dominated Darius. He dominated Dan Hooker. So I think BSD versus Armin Sarukin is the fight to book.
Yeah. There's another one that I was thinking about too. Um, would you be surprised if Armin fights Patty next?
Patty has said that he would fight like this summer, like June or July. And realistically, that's the soonest Armin's going to get anyone. So I could see that. I don't know why. I know Patty's a very arrogant guy, but I almost feel like Patty would rather fight Dan Hooker
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
fight Armin because he just had that title shot. Realistically, I think Armin beats Patty right now. So I almost feel like Patty would rather take some bad blood, fight down, beat up on Dan Hooker rather than getting sat on and kind of embarrassed and make it a 2-run losing streak against Armin. But that is something out there that could happen for the summer.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the UFC pushes that. And then the on the other part too, it's like Charles and Max are both 3 and 4 right now. Someone's gonna win that, and you get rid of Gaethje. Armin's the real number one contender. Obviously, with Gaethje gonna fight Ilya, and then the winner of Charles and Max, like, do they just get the next title shot? Is
They get
that
the BMF belt. That's
okay?
what really matters here.
Yeah, so there's 3 belts in this division. So,
Yes, sir.
um, but like I think Charles and Max, one of those guys is going to be arguably the number one contender up there with Armin, but I don't see either of them getting a title fight anytime soon, right? Like you're gonna have Ilya versus Gaethje, and then after that, I mean, I think the UFC would rather have Armin and Patty both get a title shot before they give one to Max or Charles at this point. Um, so I don't know. It's a weird timeline with those guys at the top.
Yeah, I agree. And one last thing on it before we move on is I think it does seem like Ilya versus Gaethje will be at the White House. I don't know if there's been anything official on that, but it does seem like they're going to have Gaethje as their American champion, as there continues to be a lack of American champions in the UFC. But I don't know. I could see on one hand, Gaethje, he's in front of the president and he makes a big speech and he retires. But on another hand, I almost think he would rather retire in like a legacy fight with the winner of Charles versus Max, where that old core, maybe it's a double retirement. Maybe the Charles gets KO'd, he retires, and then Max and Gaethje both retire in a rematch, something like that. I don't know why. I just think, assuming Gaethje gets like brutally KO'd at the White House in 1 minute by Ilya, I just don't know if Gaethje is really gonna call it at that. I feel like he wants a better ending than that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really hard when he probably gets flatlined within 2 rounds. I think it's going to
Yeah.
be hard for him to say, no, I'm going to keep fighting at this point. And he said he was going to retire if he didn't get a title fight. So that's kind of where we are with that. But bringing in, more guys in this division, obviously Rufi and Fiziev. I think for this one, interesting call right now with Rufi. I would say that a good fight for him, depending on how far they move up BSD, that would be a good fight. I think it would be a big jump for him, obviously. But I mean, when you look at the rankings, right? BSD is at 8 right now. Rufi is going to move up to at least 9, because Fiziev was at 9. You put BSD at 6, probably where Hooker is. But who says that Rufi isn't like, they may put him, do they put him above Dan Hooker? He's going to be at least like 8 or 9, I would say, by tomorrow. And then you have BSD at 6. I know Armin's really only fight would be against BSD right now, the closest guy in the rankings, but I don't think that's a bad shout either, would be Rufi versus BSD.
Yeah, both of those guys have a ton of momentum right now. I think Rufi, I think you're right. He'll get a huge boost after that win. Fazaev, it really is a shame. Like, I really am a fan of him, but he really is the Khalil Roundtree of 155. He has that great disciplined style, but he just can't win. He just gets beat up and beat up by better fighters. It's a shame, but that's where his career is at. I think maybe they give him Darius or Michael Chandler, and they have a fun little fight between two guys that are washed. But Rufy, I'll say it myself. I am not the I used to like him a lot as a prospect. I slowed down on him a lot, but wow, that was an amazing showing by Rufy against Fazaev, who
Hmm.
I do like a lot. So you definitely have to reward him. If that's the only other name we haven't mentioned in that like top 10 is someone like Gamrot, but I don't think they'd give him like a wrestler in Gamrot when they want to show off his amazing striking that he's been showing. So there definitely will be someone's going to be the odd man out, just like Armin's been the last year. But Rufi's going to get a huge boost. I was so impressed by him. I thought Fazaev was the stronger guy, and he was going to go out there and just like elbows, like straights and hooks, and just box his head off. But Rufi looks, he used to get a lot of the featherweight McGregor evaluation comparisons, and he does have that like special like timing and range management at featherweight or at lightweight, sorry. And it's very impressive, honestly, against someone like Fazaev. So I don't know who you give him, but I was extremely impressed, and I do think I don't know, is he the best fighting nerd? I don't know. I still think humbly that Silva. I think like Silva, Prates are tied for 1 and 2, but I don't know. Rufi could be up there after that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll have to see what happens with Borralho in this next fight as well, especially with his last loss to Imavov, who's one of the best in that division as well. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'm still at that point. I think I'm at the point with Rufy right now, kind of where I am with Silva, where like I don't think he's really like a blue chip elite level guy. But I think he's good enough to be up there. I think I'm higher on Silva than I am on Rufy, definitely. But I mean, just looking at the rest of the guys in this division, like it does make it very interesting too, because you would the lightweight division usually is like the premier division of the UFC. They have most of the biggest names are always in the lightweight division. But I think Ilya is up here, like S tier. I would say Armin's A tier, really pushing the S tier. No one else, I think there's a big gap between Armin, Ilya, and everyone else in this division right now. Like I think both of those guys realistically could beat every single person in this division. Like I'm taking Armin over Gaethje, Oliveira, Holloway, Patty, Hooker, Gamrot, BSD, any of those guys, and obviously Ilya as well. But I just think there's such a big talent disparity. Not that there aren't good fighters in this division, but when we look at other divisions right now, like even like you look at middleweight, there's guys like DDP who, just won the belt. Khamzat's a really good champion, but there's a lot of guys in that area like Imavov. I mean, Strickland, not great, but he can go out and give you a performance if he needs to. Welterweight, you look at those top guys. Michael Morales, Ian Gary, Shavkat, JDM, even guys like Sean Brady or CP, all great fighters there as well. But it just seems like lightweight, like there's a lot of exciting guys, but those guys like Charles and Max, they're older now. Justin Gaethje as well. Those three guys could all retire by the end of this year or next year. I wouldn't be surprised. And outside of that, I just think there's a big like talent gap between a guy like Armin and pretty much every other contender in this division.
Yeah, I completely agree. I still think so highly of Armin Struk, and I just want to see him fight someone. But I know we just saw Gaethje beat Paddy Pimblett, but in a weird way, I think Paddy honestly might be in that 1B contender status. I think Ilya and Armin are like clearly the best. And I just think Gaethje really did not look good. I think that's more so if Paddy had a really bad game plan. But Gaethje looked kind of swollen and old, and I don't know. I don't think Gaethje has any chance against these top guys in the division, which is kind of what I was saying. Like he should fight his retirement fight against Oliveira or Max, someone kind of on the decline in their careers. But regardless, speaking of career declines, we have Bam Bam Tai Tuivasa. Wow. I mean,
Shui
I,
Vasa strikes
I'm
again.
you can just tell he thinks he deserves to win that fight, but this dude is still ranked. If he is not cut by the time this episode is out, I am gonna be absolutely shocked. Like, oh my God. I mean, he's so close to the top 10. Six fight losing skid, by the way. That is six fights, and he is still a ranked fighter. But before I get to you, I mean, that was just two fatties really just slugging it out. I was just not impressed at all. Taliesin Teixeira, I've known this since his contender series. They gave him the can of all cans. I believe the dude had like a losing record. Like he was straight up not a good fighter. He was like a foot shorter. Taliesin got rocked in that fight before he knocked out that dude that doesn't know how to fight. He beat up Atafa, bro, which, as we saw again on this card, they are not real fighters. They're just fat. If you're Samoan fat, sure, you can take a punch. It doesn't mean you're a UFC fighter. And then he got murdered by a fat old Derek Lewis. And now, like, there was a point in that fight where Ty was about to win the fight. That's like, Teixeira is not a legit prospect, but I'll stop ranting.
Are there prospects in this division? Like realistically,
I don't
like
think so.
there's
Mario
not.
Pinto might be the only one.
Yeah, and Salsa Boy. Don't forget about
Yeah.
Waldo.
He's
Great.
not even a prospect anymore. He's like in the upper guard of the
I
division.
guess that is true. He's won
Yeah.
more than two fights in his past four fights, so he's a contender.
Yep.
That he's past the prospect because he's actually, if you can fight, you're a contender in this division. Yeah, no, but just, I mean, I don't even know. Like, what is there to say about the heavyweight division that we don't say every single week, every single month, every single episode? It's just terrible. Tied to Avasa. I was saying that he should be cut from Team OTO. I know you want to give him one more chance. Last week we were joking about, oh yeah, when Ty has a terrible performance, let's have him fight Derek Lewis on the White House card. Well, there you go. That's what's going to happen. If he doesn't get cut, he won't get cut though, because he's a fan favorite. I'm glad that he took a year and a half off to improve his game and come back with and look like an absolute beast. He almost won in that third round. He just ran out of time.
I mean, that is certainly one way to put it. I mean, when you're struggling with that type of weight cut, prayers up to Tide Tuivasa. I know that was TJ Dillashaw-esque, like that struggled down to 265, but
Dang.
I can't. I was watching like the UFC heads in the front row, all the matchmakers, like, and you're just watching them watch this fight, and these guys gassed out immediately. Daniel Cormier was losing his mind, asking why they're clinching. Like these guys are so out of shape. Honestly, bring back steroids just for heavyweights. Brock Lesnar, if you put him on one round, this one cycle, he probably would like be a top three contender right
I'm taking Brock Lesnar right now without steroids over any of
Honestly,
these
yeah.
over
He's
any
in
of
better
these
shape
guys.
than these guys. Like, it's just, it's plain out ridiculous. Like, Tai Tuivasa, if you can do a shoey, I guess you can be a top 10 ranked heavyweight. I'll just never understand it. But, I mean, I was almost going to compliment him for a second for hurting Teixeira, but it really shows that Teixeira is just not good. He's a hype merchant. Ty, like, he had a minute left to win the fight and he was so fat he couldn't do it. He like physically couldn't get himself to throw a punch. He was that close to knocking out Teixeira. I don't even know what to say. Like what is the point? You have 25 heavyweights signed to the roster and 15 of them are too fat to go 3 rounds. Like what's the point?
Well, I mean, like you said, that weight cut is tough. Not everyone can make the heavyweight weight cut. Like we always bring up Justin Tafa hospitalized during his
Mm.
weight cut. So I don't know, man. Like Ty's gonna go to 15th after this, if he doesn't get unranked.
He better be in street beefs by Tuesday.
I don't even know, man. Like at this point, um, what do you, there's nothing else really to say about this division. It's just absolutely abysmal. And like at this point, I don't know. Like I'm not even mad that Tom Aspinall's not fighting because I don't want to see any heavyweights fight. Like at this point, I think you just cut the division. Like get rid of the heavyweight division. You either have to make it only 10 ranked fighters, um, 1.5 rounds or something. Like maybe just do like one 5 minute round. Because the best guys like Aspinall usually goes like one round anyway. Um, and half of these guys can't go past a round. Half of them like just want to lay on top of you. So I don't even know. It's just the state of the heavyweight division has gotten terrible. John Jones tried to save it. He realized that he couldn't, so he took his championship and retired. It's a lost cause at this point, and it's terrible. Just across the board, almost every single fighter in this division is absolutely terrible.
I do have one idea. Editors clip this and send this to Dana White. You supply every UFC signed heavyweight with one cycle of steroids and a 1 month dose of Ozempic. You get them all, you cut the whole division, you sign all of them to light heavyweight. If anyone can't make the weight, Tai Tuivasa, I'm looking at you, insta cut, you never can fight again for the UFC. They all become light heavyweights. It brings life to light heavyweight and then a ton of light heavyweights move down to middleweight, and so on and so on. And boom, every division is now full of life, full of talent, and Tai Tuivasa is cut. So I think that solves all of the issues in the UFC. Um, Simple as.
Maybe, yeah, or just make a women's heavyweight division at this point.
I think they would still beat Tai Tuivasa.
Probably. And the final fight on the main card, a an actual good fighter on Team OTO. I think this might be one of the first wins for Team OTO this year. I think the first main card win, at least.
Sean O'Malley.
Well, Sean won last week. Yeah, that is true. But Quinton Salkill went into this fight. I was very surprised actually. I had him by first round knockout, but he decided to go out there, and this was one of those fights where you know that he's fighting a guy that he's a lot better than. And I think this was one of those performances that we've seen in the past, kind of like Bo Nickel, where I pointed out before, realistically, he would go out there and could easily submit him in like the first round, but he wanted to prove that he could strike. The opposite for this one, obviously, Quillen, great striker. I think he wanted to prove that he can get a submission win, and he went out there and just absolutely ran through him. One of the best prospects within that division, and I would say pretty close in the UFC overall. I have him in pretty high regards right now, especially compared to some of the guys that fell off last year, like we saw with Wellmaker, who I still think could be back, but just a good performance overall. So at least someone is winning on this card for Team OTO, and yeah, shout out Ty Tuivasa.
I guess so. Yeah, we're very proud of Quillen. He has made a YouTube short out of everyone he has fought, and Jamie Malarkey is, to be honest, every time they're fighting in Perth or Sydney, they throw him on the main card. He's kind of like a Jimmy Crute or a Connor Matthews. Like they throw him on there, like they feed him someone really good, and they're like, "Hey, just like make something happen." That was very expected outcome. The choke was not, but Salkild has showed he is a very competent grappler, wrestler with judo. I mean, he is extremely well rounded, and when you compare him to like you brought up Malcolm Wellmaker. Wellmaker really struggles. He can still make YouTube shorts out of his opponents, but he really struggles with being a well-rounded fighter and being and not just a one-trick pony of just a right hook. Quillen has the bakery kick, as they call it. I just coined that right now. But the Baker has that move, and if he was doing that every fight, that would have been the Wellmaker path of spamming it, trying to get another highlight. But he is so well rounded. He has dominated everyone he's fought. He fought the Pride of India, Anshul Jubli, and knocked him out with the first punch of the fight. Every single person he's fought, he's beat them a different way. By a head kick, by a punch knockout, straight punch, by wrestling, by decision, by choke, by grappling. So this is the fight where I do think he is a legit prospect. I don't know how high that goes with the top prospects in the UFC, but I think he's amazing at everything he does, and that's how you become a legit prospect is you don't have holes in your game. So when you look at the future for Quillen, I mean, what is next for him? Lightweight, this was a lightweight heavy card. I guess I'll give you the reins then. Who do you give Quillen next?
I think I think I'm gonna give him your boy, Benil Dariush.
Ooh, not my boy, but that
He
would definitely
was. He
be a
was
first
before you
round pick.
switched up on him.
Okay, I liked him. He was not my boy, but that's still my
I
boy.
think I mean Dariush is out of the rankings now, but I still think it's a big enough name where I don't
Is he
want to
out
see
of the
him.
room?
Yeah, he's not. I don't think he's ranked anymore. I
I
could
got
be
him at
wrong. Oh,
11.
he's 11th. Sorry. No,
Yeah.
I was looking at 15 and I did not see him. No, he's 11th. I'm sorry. Sorry, Benil Dariush. Maybe I guess I expected him to not be there after
That's fair.
the 16-second knockout in his last fight. I thought that would move him down in the rankings, but I guess not. But I'm sure he'll be probably like 12th or 13th by the end of this next week, when the rankings come out. Or maybe we'll just give Quillen Michael Chandler.
I was thinking it. Michael Chandler's name was brought up by Dan Hooker as a potential call out for the White House. Um,
They both need someone to fight.
that is true. They both need a win.
I don't
But
think that's going to work well though because Chandler can grapple, and I've heard through the rumor mill that Dan Hooker can't grapple.
somebody might have said that. Chandler would probably gain superpowers fighting at the White House though. In, unless he's already booked against McGregor, which is very likely to happen as we know. But before this fight, I did not think Quillen. I loved Quillen, as we know, OTO fighter. But I did think he was still like one or two fights away after this from a ranked fight. But I'm gonna be honest, he has no holes in his game that I can see. I think you give him a ranked fight right now. I think Dariush. If you want like a flatline KO highlight reel, you give him Dariush. That would probably be a head kick. I could see someone like Michael Chandler. I don't think they're gonna give him a name like that, but build of like a Dariush, like a washed vet, bad shin. But I think Quillen's ready. I think you got to push him into the rankings now, and um, Dariush is not a bad name at all for a guaranteed win.
Yeah. I think the only thing is like hypothetically, if we're looking purely off the numbers, like Manuel Torres would make more sense. But Manuel Torres at only 30 and the way that he's been fighting recently, I would save him because I think he could also go on a little bit of a run. So I wouldn't do that. But yeah, I mean, I think Dariush is a pretty good fight to make there. I think going into this, Quillen was like probably around that 25-ish range, top 30 guys. So he's getting to a point where there's not really anyone that's not ranked that wouldn't just be a can for him at this point. So I don't think that's a bad shout. There is actually one guy I'm looking at right here. I think it would be an interesting one. I don't know if the UFC would do it, but he's not ranked, but a guy in Jalen Turner. I think that would be a banger fight.
I would agree with that. Jalen Turner's trying to make a little career revival. He's at a very fluctuating career, but
I think it's
I would
also very
definitely.
winnable for Quillen.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I kind of forgot about Jalen Turner that he is in the UFC. He's not ranked anymore, but yeah, that's a very good idea.
Yeah, I mean, just one of those guys that because I was trying to find someone that's not maybe not ranked, but not like closer to the 50th area. I would say Turner's in that like 20, 25-ish spot. But I think either way, no more cans. I think it's time for him to step up. And it just depends on if the UFC wants to give him a guy like Turner before they give him a ranked fight. If you're going to give him a ranked fight, I think Dariush makes the most sense. Um, unless, I don't know, unless there's someone else that you think I feel like that makes the most sense because the other guys within that area, he's not going to fight Chandler. He's not going to fight Torres. I don't think he should fight Torres. Um, I don't think he's going to fight Rufi. Rufi won't be there by then. But I don't think you give him Fiziev right now. I think you protect him more by giving him a guy like Dariush than Fiziev.
Yeah, I agree. He has plenty of time. Torres is, beside his age, he's definitely a prospect or on the up and up, a contender more so.
Hmm.
But regardless, yeah, that's Salkid. We know now he's a very high peak. A lot of things to come for him. But speaking of guys that have a high peak, have done very well, we're gonna go to our shock of the night, someone who had a great performance on the card. I'll start with this one. Mauricio Rufy is my shock of the night. He had a great performance. I did not think he was going to win that. He made Fiziev look very bad on the feet, and Fiziev is a very talented striker. So I was very impressed with Rufy, and he raised his stock a lot.
Yeah, I'm going in a little bit of a different direction here. I have Rufi as well. I was just shocked by that performance. I really thought Fiziev was going to go out there and beat him. But in the end, we talked about it a lot before with the fight, kind of what's in the future for Rufi. We'll have to see if he really is that top tier contender in this division. And I think having a higher ranked fight after this will be very interesting as well. Next up for the flop of the night, you could probably guess where I'm going since we talked about him a
There
lot
was a lot of
already.
flopping around in that fight.
Yes, tied to Avasa. No notes besides that. Nothing else to say.
Yeah, I was gonna take Tai Tuivasa, and then I thought I'm like underperformance. Like that's actually an overperformance for me. He is so bad that I think he did better than I thought. I truly believe that. So I took Dan Hooker because I don't know what made me think Dan Hooker. I knew it was going to be a very tough fight. Benoit Saint-Denis is very good and better than most people even think. But I thought Dan Hooker was going to at least give him a fight. I think he maybe could have worked on his grappling a little bit. Maybe it's a touchy subject now, but Dan Hooker likes to he likes to brawl, and I didn't see any of that. And I saw him laying on his back getting hounded by about 50 unanswered strikes with zero movement from Dan. And it just made me think, like, in the second round, like, That's what we're seeing from Dan Hooker in this point in his career. Like I was very underwhelmed by him.
Yeah. And the final one is our prelim of the night, our surprising prospect, or someone that fought in the prelims that really went out there and had a good performance. I had Billy Elikana. Going into this fight, we said that if he knocked out Tafa in the first round, he would get a contract. But we're still negotiating right now. He did get a second round performance. He went out there and got the win in the second round. So not the first round necessarily, like he would have been promised. But good performance from him. Tafa came out in the first like minute or two, looked like he could win, and that was it. That's usually what happens in those fights. If they can't get it done in the first minute, then it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and before I go on to my guy, when the OTO management us is looking at with our agents, with the rest of our employees and our interns for our new rosters, if I see a Tafa matchup, I need a first round KO. So I'm gonna publicly put it out there. Billy Elikana, I vote no on his admission into Team OTO. If you go past 5 minutes with the Tafa, bro, I automatically vote no. But going into my prelim prospect fighter of the night, Cam Rouston is a city kickboxer. I was very impressed with him. He fought Cody Brundage, who's not very good, but Cam Rouston looked incredible. And Rouston's 2-0 now, and he's another very well-rounded guy. He has incredible striking, amazing kicking, and great grappling as well, where he managed to dominate Cody Brundage in every way. But on the Contender Series too, he looked incredible, and he lost to Torres Finney his first time around on the Contender Series. So I've been watching him get a lot better every fight. Cam Rouston had a decent call out, but I'm very impressed with him, and I think his stock is getting a lot higher.
Yeah. And for the first time in a long time, we actually have a few fight nights to go over.
Yeah.
I don't think we've talked about fight nights in a long time because we had that 6 week break in December. So we haven't talked about a UFC fight night and previewed it since probably November of last year. So exciting things. And starting off with an absolute banger card this weekend. Mario Bautista versus Oliveira, I think is going to be a great fight. I'm pretty high on both of these guys. I don't really like Bautista, but I can recognize now that I think that he's a pretty solid fighter. Oliveira, I think, is an absolute dog, though. Horiguchi versus Amir Albazi is like, I rankings wise, it makes sense. I just the Horiguchi like comeback still just hasn't really processed that much in my brain. So him versus Amir Albazi is kind of crazy. Number 6 heavyweight Jailton Almeida versus Contender Series 265-pound Russian Rizvan Kuniev, who
Mm.
went 3 rounds with Curtis Blades before. So who knows? I have a prediction for this fight. I think Jailton Almeida probably runs around in circles and makes him gas out after the first 3 minutes and then probably just chokes him out or just lies on top of him for 3 rounds as well. So yeah, state of the heavyweight division as well. But other solid fights on here. Saeed Nurmagomedov on here as well. Shout out to him. And Wang Kong as well. Yeah, I don't know if there's any other specific fights that you want to talk about on this one. We do have a few fight nights, so we'll go over, highlight some of the fights on each one. But
Yeah, I'll just fly through. I mean, Jacob Wilklaus was the man that cut Patchy Mix from Poland. Big fan of his. Daniil Donchenko is the reigning TUF winner. He had multiple fight cancellations, but he's a beast. I think he's going to beat Alex Morono. And then Horiguchi, I love his return story. Amir Albazi has been wasting a top ranking for so long. He's dealt with injuries. I really hope Horiguchi gets the win there. And Bautista too. I'm not a fan of him. He is very good though. He did pretty good against Umar. Lockdog Oliveira is one of my favorite fighters. After I used to see him at 303, he was doing some flying knees. He did some Rabona kicks. I'll say though, I'll put it out there now. I think Bautista is going to get the win there. I love Oliveira, but Bautista is just a very good, disciplined fighter. But I'll move on to Strickland Hernandez if you don't have anything else to mention.
Yeah, no, I think I'm good on that one.
Yeah, fair enough. But Strickland versus Fluffy Hernandez is a pretty decent, a lot better of a fight night. They just came out with the poster. It's in Texas. This was originally going to be in, was it 325 or it was going to be rebooked somewhere. Anyway, this was the date that is now picked. I know they didn't want to pay taxes wherever it was booked, but now it's in Texas. Strickland versus Fluffy is a great fight. I'm happy Strickland is back on the fight nights. I think it's where he belongs. I'm taking Fluffy here. I'm a big fan of Fluffy. This is a crazy shout, but when you look at 185, I think Imavov and Fluffy are the only two guys that have any chance at all against Kamaev. I'll say that right now.
DDP almost beat Kamaev. Let's not forget about that.
Ooh. Almost is an interesting way to
Almost.
put that domination.
Hey,
But
there he almost had the choke in.
okay, okay. Anyway, Fluffy is one of the only middleweights with great cardio, grappling, and striking, and you need all three to beat Kamaev. As we saw DDP, he maybe had one out of the three if we're being honest here. But either way, we have Jacoby Smith versus Suk Hyun Ko in an OTO Contender Series fight. So we will get into that after, but that is going to be a great fight. You're going to want to see Jacoby Smith. And this is a lot better. Chidi and Kawani's not bad. We have Alibi Idris from TUF, and then your boy on the OTO roster, Alden Korea. So John Paul Labissiere too. Another good fighter. So this card is definitely better if you have anyone you want to shout out.
Yeah, I like this card as well. There's a lot of guys on here that I'm a big fan of. Zachary Reese as well. Big fan of him. But like you said, we have a few different guys here that will be competing out of the team OTO gym in Alden. We also have a contender series matchup between Jacoby Smith and Ko. I think that'll be a good fight overall. And you know, depending on what we see from that fight, who knows? Maybe both guys get signed, or the winner, if we see a knockout or submission. But if they go out there and put out a banger, then potentially both guys could get signed. A top 10 heavyweight matchup in this one. Can't forget about that. Shout out to the heavyweights too. But yeah, I think overall a pretty solid card. And then one thing that you did bring up, I'm pretty sure this was announced like 3 months ago, as the fight night card in Houston. I'm pretty sure it's always been in
Okay.
Houston
I
because
know, I think maybe they were trying to move Strickland versus Hernandez onto a numbered event then. Because I
I
know
think
that.
I think
Mhm,
maybe Strickland wanted to
mhm.
move himself, but I think the
Okay,
UFC
okay.
I think
Fair
the
enough.
UFC overruled him.
That does
Um,
make sense.
And then the final fight night before we get on to the next numbered event in UFC 326 is in Mexico with the hometown hero Brandon Moreno coming back. Also Chito Vera on this card. I don't know. He's from Ecuador, but I don't know if he represents Mexico or something. I don't know. Eileen Eileen Perez anyway. Shout out to Eileen Perez. This card not as excited. There is one fight that early contender for the King Green Knockout Award is going to be Daniel Zellhuber versus Bobby Green. So we will see. I honestly, I don't know, man. I don't know. They have to be giving him a lot of money to take this fight because I don't know. If I'm throwing my shot out there, I think this is going to be a top five knockout of the year. It hasn't even happened, but if it doesn't happen, I think you put down Zellhuber's stock a lot, but I think he's probably going to flatline Bobby Green. And then shout out Chris Matino as well, in his UFC return arc. Um, in he's a guy that did return against Wellmaker, a guy that almost beat a former champion, almost went the distance with Sean O'Malley back in the day, back in the glory days, and a guy that will be now going into his fourth UFC fight and has never won and has been knocked out in every fight. So if you're listening to this and you want to be in the UFC, you have a chance.
That is true. And people forget, man, if he didn't lose to Suga, he would have won that fight. But
That is, if he
going,
didn't get knocked out, then he would have at least had
well,
a chance to win the fight.
yeah, he would have had a chance. If he didn't lose, he definitely would have won. I will say that. But Daniel Zellhuber is someone that I saw at the Sphere and thought was incredible. If he does not KO King Green, OTO is going to release this statement right now. We're going to personally request he gets released from the UFC himself and Bobby
Mhm.
Green. That is just ridiculous.
Well, no, no, no. Bobby Green's not getting cut. He's
He
uncut.
can stay.
He's on the uncuttable list.
Okay, yeah, he can stay. But I will say David Martinez is a name. He's fighting Cheeto, and David Martinez, I feel like is very slept on. He is such a fast, his kicks are incredibly fast. And I almost think Cheeto is just so complacent. I used to love Cheeto, but it seems like he lost a lot of steam after he lost that title shot against Suga. So Martinez is very, very good, and I honestly think we could see a great performance against Cheeto. I think he could get that win, but there's nothing really. I am not a Moreno guy in the slightest. I do not love Amabayev either. So Imanol Rodriguez is also from the Ultimate Fighter, and that's really, man, that's all I got for that. And then we just got 326 coming up.
Yeah, one more thing too about that. In the flyweight division, with not so many contenders, I think Almabayev with a win here gets up in there for a title contention for a fight, depending on, obviously if Moreno and or not Moreno, whenever Pantoja comes back from that injury and fights Van, or if Tyra fights Van before that, either way. But I think whoever wins this probably third in line for a title fight, and I think Almabayev, one of the only guys that really hasn't got a crack at the title yet. And would be higher obviously if he didn't get knocked out by Cop when he did last year. And who even knows what's going to happen with Cop? I mean, they give him opportunities all the time, and it just seems like he just doesn't. He either just doesn't show up for the fight, or he just doesn't show up to the fight. Either way. But then our next numbered card, UFC 326. Definitely a card that we will be watching.
Title fight.
Yeah. It seems like, you would assume that if you have the BMF belt, you would try to build up these cards. But every year, I think there's always one card that really just, I don't want to say it's going to be bad because I don't know yet, but I'm just not really too moved by this card. Like Max versus Charles being in the event, I know that makes a lot of people excited. I know a lot of people are big fans of both of them, but it's just not really a fight that I'm really excited about. I really want to see young guys go out there and get title fights, or see a guy like Ilya go out there and defend his belt, or Islam. I really don't care about this fight too much, which I know I'm probably in the minority with that one, but there's just no implications for this fight for me. I think it's going to be a good fight. Um, and then besides that, I mean, Moicano trying to get a new opponent. I don't even know why you book Brian Ortega anymore. Like, I don't know. And then Berhalio versus RDR actually could be a very good fight. I'm very excited for that one. Honestly, if they moved that to be the co-main event, and I
I
wouldn't even
believe it
be
will be
mad.
now.
I wouldn't be mad if that's a 5 round fight. Like if they go into talks, that is 100% in my opinion worth a 5 round fight. And then you have RoboCop versus Ferreira, Chiwiwi versus Rob Font, Cody Garbrandt's on here as well. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do. And I do think that they'll probably announce. I don't know. I feel like Berhalio versus RDR is a good co-main event, but I wouldn't be surprised if they try to bring in another fight on this card. And at this point, I mean, they're losing 2 or 3 fights in the past two numbered cards, right? Like the first card, there was what, maybe 11 fights, I think, by the actual date out of the 15 that were supposed to happen. This week, there were 13 out of 15 because of illegal illegal weight cutting tactics. Magically gained 9 pounds on the scale once he couldn't put his elbows there. But it happens. You got to be more like DC in that moment, and actually get your weight cut right, or
Or
just hold on to the towel a little less. But I don't know. I mean, you can tell me, but I wouldn't say that I'm thrilled for this.
yeah, I would agree. I mean, Max and Charles are two names that like defines the UFC in their last like 10 years. This is what I was saying earlier in the Paramount era. That is an amazing co-main. I would love if you had, obviously it's tough with the White House card, but if you had an amazing or a champ that you really need to bring status to, like Joshua Van or Piotr Jan or Tom Aspinall, one of these champs that you need to build their name, this is when you give them a fight. And then the co-main, which is not a title fight, by the way, is Max versus Charles. That's how you do it. You have an amazing fight people want to see, and then you have your title fight. So it's tough to see hypothetically Moicano versus Ortega as a co-main. Obviously, it's not happening because Ortega, I mean, like what is even going on? He moves up a weight class, misses weight, then gets injured now for this fight. I don't know what. I honestly think they should cut him. I'm so sick of dealing with him. I wish Lopez would have knocked him out cold, but I do agree with you. Barajo versus RDR seems like that's the co-main, and that is not a bad co-main. I would like that to be a 5 round fight as well, but Max versus Charles is a good one. Cody Garbrandt, they're giving him a road to the UFC guy. Like, I don't know if that was Cody's idea because they're trying to feed him a win or what is going on there. He's probably going to lose anyway. And then the only other name, I mean, Chiwiwis is back, I guess. He's kind of hurt his own career a lot by taking like a year off. And I don't know, Rob Font is, that's not an easy fight. We'll see how that goes. But the only other name I saw was Dante Johnson, the hard-hitting 5'8" middleweight from Wisconsin. I would watch out for a huge KO from Dante Johnson to make the scenes. But if we're going back to the top, we'll just go with Charles and Max. I have not, I mean, this fight seems such, I know it's the BMF belt. I don't know how Charles really constitute as a BMF after getting flatline KO'd many, many times and giving up many times. But
I think Ilya actually won the belt, but I could
I
be
think
wrong.
in the lineage, it's somewhere. I think CM Punk could even have it lineage wise. Who knows where it's at? But I mean, Charles, like, he just doesn't fight very smart, if we're being honest. I love Charles. I love watching him fight. But I just think Max is just gonna box his head off and knock him down, TKO, early in the fight. Charles is very good. Maybe he gets Max's back. I honestly can't even give a prediction on this because it really depends if Charles is gonna go out there and want to win this belt. So I guess I'll give Max round two TKO.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I just going into this, like we said, I mean, I would be excited if this was the co-main event. This is a perfect example of UFC 300. Gaethje versus Max was the co-main event for that, right? I believe so. Or was that the third
Yes, it
fight?
was. It was the co-main
Okay.
event.
Yeah, and then the absolute banger. Even if he didn't get that finish in the last second, still a fantastic fight. And then you have the Alex Pereira card. And I think now realizing what's been going on, Alex Pereira has really saved the UFC the past few years. And after this, I mean, looking forward, there's no pay-per-views announced yet. There's fight nights announced for the rest of March. We have the one after that, highlighted by Emmett versus Vallejos and in the main event. And then the London card will actually be good with Murphy versus Evlaev and probably other good fights after that. Adesanya versus Body Bag Joe in the end of March as well. And then I don't know when the first numbered card would be in April. I would assume the first or second week, but they said that after they got past this weekend, they're going to start booking those fights for the White House. I think that's why they did it back to back to start the year, so then you can get most of those guys ready for then. And I really hope there's not like 6 or 7 championship fights because that just ruins the rest of the year. And I don't want to see cards like this for the rest of the year. I don't want to see BMF belts put up. I don't want to have to see interim champions fight. I mean, if we look at it, right, we've had two numbered cards and one championship fight, one actual championship fight in the past two cards.
Yeah, just about.
So I don't know. I don't know. I hate to say that the UFC is in a bad spot because it's obviously growing and there's a lot of good stars. I just think they need to figure something else out with the booking. And I'm just going to blame TKO because it seems like across the board, people like to blame them for pretty much everything. So
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I mean, I do agree. The White House card, that's why in my mind you got to do McGregor Chandler. You got to do Derek Lewis versus Tai Tuivasa. You do the fun fights, the big
absolute
names,
badass fight.
some badass fights, and you do those fights, and it gets a ton of excitement, blah blah blah. But you don't ruin the year. The thing with the UFC is there is so many good names. There's not a lack of talent in the slightest, but the matchmaking is ridiculous when you have these pay-per-views like back-to-back weeks and you only have one title fight and it's like you don't have the talent. I much prefer stacked pay-per-views than spread out super thin pay-per-views or numbered events, sorry. But it is I know we have that White House card that I guess allegedly is holding everything up, but when you run through the champions like Aspinall, when did he fight last? Pereira, when did he fight last? Kamaev, Islam, it feels like these guys never fight. Like the champ should be every single month, someone should be fighting, and it sure does not feel that way. But either way, I'm honestly excited for the White House card to happen, mostly so we are done with it and we get back to normal programming. But 326, I mean, Charles versus Max will be a fun fight regardless. But before we leave you guys and see you then, we will quickly.
I do have one thing before.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you.
Just thinking, yeah, yeah. Just thinking forward, hypothetically, one numbered event, we have one in March, and then we need one in April and in May because the White House card is in June. Who are the champions that are fighting in April and May? Um, is it Jan's out of the question, I feel like, right? I mean, unless they would be in the May card, but I feel like that's kind of pushing it. Volk definitely not. Ilya definitely not. Islam's not because of Ramadan. Um, does Kamzat fight during Ramadan? I don't know. If can we get
Uh, I don't believe so.
um yeah. So realistically, what? In April and May, we need champions to fight. The only guys that I think are going to be able to step up are Van and Pereira. Because Aspinall's not fighting, Ilya's not fighting, Islam's not fighting. Kamzat would be very shocked if he does. Volk isn't. So, I mean,
I think there's a crazy chance that we are going to see a Mackenzie Dern headlined numbered event. I think that could be in the books here because we're running out of champions.
yeah. I think what if I had to make a prediction right now, I would say the April card because you can't put Van and Pereira on the same card, right? If they're the only two champions that are fighting.
In my mind, I think Van
I
and
think it's
Pereira are clearly the next two, but I think they're going to be headlining both. And then the
yeah.
White House will be Ilya.
Yeah. So I would say what Van and Mackenzie Dern on one card, and then Pereira and
Just some random co-main.
Shevchenko.
I don't even know if they would do. It's probably just going to be a title challenger fight, something along those lines.
Yeah, I guess so. We could probably just put Burns versus Gabriel Bonfim for the co-main.
Yeah, or Colby Covington, America's hero. He could even be headlining the White House card. But I cannot wait for these fights to get announced, the pay-per-views. We get over this hump of the White House messing everything up, get back to normality. But really quick, one last thing is we're gonna make our live decision at the end of this episode for our OTO contender series. Obviously, we only had one fight this time around, but it was Billy Elikana versus Junior Tafa. And obviously, Elikana got the win, but in the future, hey, if we see a banger, maybe we sign both. But more likely, maybe we sign neither. I'm putting my vote no for Billy and hell no for Junior Tafa.
Yeah, no. Tafa was not in the question. He was just there for formality.
Yeah.
He was given the option of if he gets knocked out within the first round, his opponent will get signed. So yeah, I agree. I would say no. And we are still looking. If there's any light heavyweights that are watching this and you guys want to get signed, let us know because um, looking through the prospects in the next few weeks, I don't see any fights that I would be too inclined for, as the only light heavyweight fight this weekend is Dustin Jacoby versus Julius Walker. Neither one of those guys. And there's
Walker,
no,
that could be a name. He's a prospect. It's not that good though.
it's an option. It's an option.
It's
But
correct.
um yeah, I don't think we have our only OTO contender series fight in these next few fight nights is going to be the Hyun Kong versus Jacoby Smith fight. So
Which will be a great fight. And both of those guys, Ko beat Oban Elliott, which is another name that we really love to. Unfortunately, just lost again, but we're hoping for a great fight there. And our official, I'm gonna make the decision now. I hope this isn't surprising you, but our first official release from an OTO contract is going to be Bam Bam Tai Tuivasa. It's actually a sign and trade to Street Beefs. So we will not be receiving anyone back. It's a one-way offer. But Tai Tuivasa, you are cut from the roster.
yeah, you know, a great guy in the end. Hopefully, this just ignites the fire underneath him to become better. But that also leaves a spot open
It
for
does.
any heavyweight. If you guys are a heavyweight or light heavyweight and want to be signed, let us know down below in the comment section as well. So we will let you guys. We will see you again in a little over a month.
After 326 and our official signing on Jacoby Smith versus Co. official decision on the Contender Series. So we will see you then.